Consciously Creating Circumstances, written by George W. Plummer in 1937. Narrated by Richard Schaefer.
Chapter 15. The Spirit of Your Thought. We have now covered most points about thought forms that you need to know to use them with some degree of success for yourself. If you like, you need go no further in this discussion, but use merely what has already been given. It will work for you. But you can do more. You can make it work for others as well. And if you do use this marvelous power to help others, that in turn will help you. In using thought forms to help others, follow the rules already given, but substitute the other person in place of yourself. In the matter of health, visualize the other person well, happy, strong, vital. If employment is the objective, see the other person busy at a useful task, earning money, and so on. The principle is the same. But be very, very sure when you use a thought form for another that it is to his or her advantage. What you think would be good for another might not be good at all. Hesitate always before taking action on the mental plane for another, as well as for yourself. For in working a thought form for another, you are involving yourself in the results of it, and you may not like them if things do not work out as you think they should, through your imperfect use of the idea. One safe way to help another, and in my opinion the very best way, is to help him to help himself. For then he puts his own efforts into the work, and the result will mean more. This applies to thought forms in particular. You may even go so far as to talk to the person who needs help about thought forms, so that he can use them for himself, if he is open-minded enough to concede the possibility of their value. We need not seek to solve all the world's problems, but we will do well to help another person in some way when the chance comes our way. Such an action gives an outlet through us to the constructive activity of the universal mind. For wherever universal mind is, and that is everywhere, there we also find it seeking an opportunity to help its own creatures. Wherever the universal mind is, there also we find love. Love for its own creatures, like the love of a parent for his children, only on a grander scale, and never failing. And love in a human being is ever the beginning of knowledge, as fire is of light. Love and life are inseparable. Sometimes we may discover that they are one and the same principle, in creative and ethical polarities. Life being everywhere, creation is therefore still going on everywhere. Your thoughts reaching out into this ocean of creative activity can direct its energies to your purposes. And if those purposes are in alignment with the nature and intent of the first creative purpose, and if they betoken progress for all, your desires will be more speedily realized. This is the essence of the admonition to become chosen vessel of the Lord. To become or to make oneself a chosen vessel implies a direct personal responsibility, one that we have not generally observed to be stressed by most self-help philosophies of the day, which are devoted mainly to the general subject of how to get what you want. The correlative responsibility is to use what you get. It seems to be a law of nature that only use brings out or keeps up what we have. If we do not use our brains, they do not develop. If we do not use our muscles, they atrophy. If we do not use our house, it deteriorates. The roof begins to leak. Pipes go bad. Window panes are broken. and the house assumes a general appearance of decrepitude. If we have wealth and do not use it for the common good, we either become useless misers or someone takes it from us. If we have talents and do not use them profitably, they diminish or are taken away. There is law back of all of this. Forces in nature are in a state of constant flux, ebb and flow. The stream goes on continuously with waves of action and reaction. If we keep on with our course, we ride the waves. If we drift, we move around in circles with the counter waves and get nowhere. If we have talents and put them into use, they multiply, and one result leads to another, still more worthwhile. If we have means, we must keep them in circulation, casting the bread upon the waters, that it may come back to us after many days. The one who hoards talent, ability, wealth, energy, finds that in due time it becomes a menace to him. You can only keep by giving away, paradoxical as that may seem. Some years ago, a wealthy New Yorker bought a land tract of land in the Adirondacks. Streams ran through it and watered adjacent lands, and everyone was happy and prosperous. But the new landowner wanted the streams for himself. He built dams so that he could enjoy artificial falls and a small lake. In due time, the lake became larger, but the water, shut off from its natural course, no longer nourished the adjacent lands, and they suffered. Vegetation dwindled to nothing, and poverty existed where before there had been plenty. The rich man's lake grew, still larger, and in time it flooded his own lands and spoiled what had been a place of beauty. Marshes formed, stagnant pools developed. Mosquitoes found it a delightful summer resort. The stubborn man only felt that he had been cheated and refused to do a thing. Finally, the farmers adjacent to him took the law into their own hands, broke down the dams, and let the water back on its natural course. And in due time, order was restored, but only after hatred, revenge, and suffering had been engendered. To this day, the wealthy owner will not go up there, neither will he sell his land. Meantime, the others who do live there are happy again. Moral: the foolish one, by his selfish refusal to put himself in alignment with the natural forces, has crowded himself out of what might have been a little paradise. The example just cited is by way of illustrating the responsibility that possession of anything entails, whether it be wealth, talent, brains, or ability. Do not formulate a thought form of anything unless you have a deep, intensive interest in using it. For instance, it would be of no use for you to wish for wealth solely that you might escape work. Wealth brings definite responsibilities. Are you as anxious to assume them, apply them, use them? If not, think of a better thought form. You cannot use universal mind to evade work, responsibility, or to look forward to a life of laziness, uselessness, or idleness. The wise bees and ants do not permit that, and neither will nature permit it in the human species without payment of some kind, which may not be pleasant to him who pays. That we have some such idlers at the moment is merely the result of accumulated motion, wherein we have not yet learned how to distribute the profusion of wealth of many kinds that an over-generous nature so lavishly bestows. Truly, anything that is right, constructive, and worthy is within the reach of any intelligent human being, if that being will only set himself in alignment with the forces whose assistance he seeks. When you have formulated your thought form by impressing it upon the universal mind, you have created a mental prototype. It is actually accomplished. That is why you have received, even before you see it in manifestation. This prototype grows, by the law of growth according to the intensity and frequency with which you pray without ceasing, i.e., fix it deeper and deeper into the universal matrix. As it grows, it attracts to itself just the material its complete expression calls for until finally it comes into externalization. The atonement to be effected by tuning the individual mind to the universal mind through a conscious and whole-souled acceptance of its existence, its power, its impersonalness, which means no favoritism but equal opportunity to all alike, is well expressed by the prophet Zechariah. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit. Therefore, it is most essential for best results that we approach universal mind from the spiritual point of view, as well as the purely mental. In this approach, we must keep in mind the requirements set before us by the Nazarene Master, who said in his own prayers, "Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done." Failure to recognize this principle is one strong reason why some fail who attempt to practice mental science. For to live by one man's will became the cause of all men's misery, as Richard Hooker wrote over 300 years ago. This principle, not my will but thine, is the pivotal point around which the well-ordered life of the individual with balanced judgment revolves. It is the properly spiritual attitude. It does not mean passivity. It does not mean sitting around waiting for a higher will to make itself manifest. It does mean going to work with all the power we possess and doing something, instead of lolling around and rationalizing our laziness with every kind of sophistry. By going about it in the right way, ready always to conform his individual will with that of the universal will, so to speak, one can effect such a reapproachment with the universal as to be able to enter into its creative activities and direct those activities to an individual measure of realization. This is what Judge Troward, a great mental scientist, meant when he described this process as one wherein the cosmic intelligence becomes individualized and the individual intelligence becomes universalized. The two become one. So I urge you to use thought forms in this spirit, if you use them at all. Yes, they will work even if you use them for some entirely worthy personal motive, but they will work with much greater power if you seek to conform them to universal motives, so far as you feel you understand them. Let your thought forms, for greatest usefulness to others and therefore to yourself, have back of them a conscious love of man and God. Whatever your purpose, let it also serve the purpose of the power that has brought you to the point where you are permitted to use thought forms. In other words, provide for the equity. Universal mind is going to do a lot for you. What are you going to do to serve the purposes of universal mind? Epictetus advises us to dare to look up to God and say, "Make use of me for the future as thou wilt. I am of the same mind. I am one with thee. I refuse nothing which seems good to thee. Lead me whither thou wilt. Clothe me in whatever dress thou wilt." The mental scientist will do well to keep that admonition in mind, and to the degree that he acts and lives it, will his life prosper.